this universe too. As Tony alienates himself from Pepper and Rhodey, he begins to realize that it is almost impossible to carry all of that responsibility by himself, especially after Nick Fury inspires him to create a new element to save himself and develop a self-sustaining energy source based on his late father's wishes. With a new perspective and a new chest, made by a new element just with lasers, Tony and Rhodey have a brief and underwhelming battle with Vanko, and Stark comes to terms with his selfishness and makes amends with Rhodey and Pepper, ending the movie with Tony becoming a consultant for S.H.I.E.L.D. rather than Iron Man. Oh, also, Black Widow's in the movie, and she's sexualized every chance she can get. It's a great debut for her. Again, the highlights of Iron Man is Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. is as charismatic as ever, and he does everything he can to carry the movie. But this movie falls into
But Black Widow was like such an awesome, sexy assassin. What I want from
they
her.
lay the groundwork for
She's
future
dead?
movies
Yeah, she's
involving
dead,
new
isn't she?
characters, developing old characters, and blending together new plot points, but that doesn't always work. It's an overstuffed film with way too much going on. Tony Stark's growth is extremely vital, but unfortunately, he's the only character that gets any love. They also continue the trend of making the one-stop villain a literal mirrored version of the protagonist before killing them off for good. A step back from the first movie, but it's not entirely awful, it's just really generic. In 2008, a few years after Sony had sold the rights to Paramount Pictures, Kenneth Branagh, known predominantly for his Shakespeare films and playing Gilroy Lockhart in Chamber of Secrets,
say goodbye to your memories.
was set to direct the Norse god Thor. He emphasized the film to be Shakespearean-like and looked through an array of possible contenders to play the lead roles. He found his prospects in Chris Hemsworth, who put on almost 50 pounds of mass for the film, and Tom Hiddleston, who had originally auditioned for Thor. After his arrogant and reckless behavior, Thor is cast to Earth and stripped of his power to wield Mjolnir. Mjolnir, sorry. Odin's decision then allows Loki to seize the opportunity to ascend to the throne after feeling neglected and overlooked in favor of his brother. On Earth, he finds astrophysicist Jane Foster, who with the group of her merry band of scientists teach him about humility and responsibility. As Thor adapts to his new family and protects them from the troubles of his past, he becomes worthy to be imbued with the power of Thor again. A final CGI battle leads to Thor getting the girl, and Loki tricking everyone into thinking he's dead. With Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston leading the praise of the film, Thor continued the MCU's box office success. Although the script was lacking, and the plot seemed to mirror the previous two entries, with a love interest and superhero trying to discover themselves, it established some pretty interesting storylines like the introduction of the Tesseract and gave us one of the best characters still utilized in Marvel, Loki. His complexity and charisma made him a standout and the first good enough villain to be reutilized in the MCU. There were also some very curious choices in design, like the amount of Dutch angles in the movie. I seriously stopped counting after the 100th scene that skewed the screen like that part in Inception. Like seriously count them. There's so many. I'm over here watching this movie with my head tilted. Then there was the Infinity Gauntlet used as a prop, and of course this was retconned later, but you know they did that shit on purpose. You know that they were just like, let me throw this in because it's cool. And finally, making Heimdall sound like Barry White. Why did they do that to Idris Elba's voice? His voice is as smooth as butter. Why did they add a filter to it? Doesn't make any sense.
You would defy the commands of Loki, our king.
The movies are beginning to feel a lot more formulaic, but hey, it's bringing people to theaters and people are still on the MCU train. We're only 4 movies in. The last film to be in production saw probably the least amount of tension and controversy. Joe Johnston wanted to create a period film addressing a man out of time and set out to do just that. There were plenty of hands on deck, with Favreau and Joss Whedon, who was prized to film the upcoming Avengers. The film's biggest scrutiny was whether or not overseas box offices would like to see such a patriotic American movie, and they were kinda right. After some very interesting cast auditions, Chris Evans was set as Marvel's Golden Boy, and the hard work of Marvel was finally reaching its climax. Set predominantly during World War II, Steve Rogers volunteers for the super soldier experiment after showing courage and determination during boot camp. Stanley Tucci plays a very glorified part as Dr. Abraham Erskine.
I would take a bullet for you. You know that.
While Peggy Carter and Red Skull are also standouts. But the real star is the Star-Spangled Man himself, Captain America. Symbolizing hope and patriotism in a selfless way, Rogers is the perfect protagonist to get behind as he simply wants to fight against bullies to protect those around him. The film showcases Captain America's journey from a scrawny underdog to a formidable hero as he battles Hydra's forces with his howling commandos, including his best friend Bucky Barnes. Weirdly enough, he never gets dirty in this movie. His shirt, flawless. Feet, flawless. Face, beautiful. I don't get it. I thought World War II was supposed to be really dirty. His relationship with his friends and potential love interests really drive home that Steve is just a stand-up guy, even showcasing that charmers like Howard Stark have to respect his genuine character. Captain America showcases he can lead any group and looks damn good doing it. With the fifth and final movie before the epic conclusion of Phase 1, the first Avenger explores themes of sacrifice, heroism, and the struggle against tyranny, all while providing an origin story for one of Marvel's most beloved characters. It continues the largely overused trope of love interest in superhero movies, but also develops the heart that was lacking in the MCU thus far. Critics and audiences both enjoyed the film for its emotional depth and stylized action, even if it did make the least amount of money out of the bunch. It also demonstrated the power of the Tesseract, which would be a huge narrative in the upcoming blockbuster. Without really any flops, the stage was now set for the crossover of a lifetime. So let's take a look at this whole picture. We got 5 different movies since 2008, and they're trying to get to this ultimate goal that is the Avengers. But before this, only really one movie was good. That's kind of crazy for them to go all in kind of a mediocre franchise.
Lightest Bright says, "Hi."
Hello, Bright.
Let's start off with the elephant in the room.
How is you this evening?
Whedon has had an amazing track of storytelling, but his misogynistic and controversial actions were
Lightest
evident
Bright
even
says,
prior to his involvement
I'm
in
alive.
Avengers. We'll talk about
Lightest
him a
Bright
little bit
says,
more when we
Alive is
Nice art.
acceptable.
But regardless, by 2010,
It
he
Lightest
was
Bright
signed to
says,
direct and write the film
Screw
with
you,
the mindset
Taco.
of making the team a
Lightest
family.
Bright
There were
says,
a few notable
if
changes
he can hear
during
me.
production, like Edward Norton. After the
You're-
whole lukewarm reception, Norton's behind-the-scenes behavior became a point of contention.
You even exist on the same plane.
Edward Norton has thus stated that there were some misunderstandings, but he doesn't regret moving on. Also, the Wasp was originally supposed to be the female Avenger and not Scarlett Johansson. Whedon had written Zooey Deschanel as the winged hero and wanted her to be the funniest character in the bunch.
Lightest Bright says, I just needed him to hear that X.
Luckily, it didn't work out, and we got our 6 mainstead heroes instead.
The
But one of the
Locanestaco
heroes was
says,
reluctant to stay.
I can
Jeremy
hear you,
Renner
of course.
says he begged producers
The
to
Locanestaco
kill his
says,
character off because
sadly.
he was so frustrated with his storyline.
Mm.
Went
Lightest
as far
Bright
as
says,
faking heart attacks during
gladly you
scenes.
mean.
With a guy that's barely been in any of the movies.
I mean,
I'm
with
gonna
it
say
being
it's
via
pretty
text,
dramatic. Although
text does not
personality
Lightest
portray
Bright says,
your
production was kept
You spelled
pretty
it a little wrong
professional,
there.
and film was
charismatic,
a highly anticipated movie.
hypnotic
Revolving around
words.
the villainous Loki, the adopted brother of Thor, who acquires the Tesseract, a powerful energy source with potentially catastrophic capabilities, now known as the Space Stone. Loki plans to use the Tesseract to open a portal to space and unleash the Chitauri army on Earth, with the intention of subjugating humanity and ruling the planet. In response, Nick Fury initiates the Avengers Initiative and assembles a team of remarkable individuals to work together and fight to protect the planet. What works best in this film is the pace and building character development and relationships.
The
As the
Locanestaco
characters'
says,
power struggles progress,
how goes
they
the art?
realize that Loki's influence grows stronger,
I
and
don't fucking
after
know.
the death of Agent Coulson, they put aside their egos and band together to save the city. After some extraordinary teamwork, the Avengers thwart Loki's plans and eat shawarma. Listen, the first Avengers movie was epic. If you saw this movie on its premiere, I don't need to tell you how amazingly well received it was. It was actually my first.
I need to decide how much I'm gonna change, like the outfit and such.
Like the Incredible Hulk, it was hilarious. He had painted his whole entire body green, and he sat there with his 3D glasses.
Honking
watching
mirrors, that from the
For
video.
the first time ever, a movie was able to balance multiple superheroes and have a tight story arc. The chemistry on screen was so flawless, and the visual effects were some of the best at the time. It paved the way for the MCU to expand their scope and
Locanestaco
brought the
says,
superhero genre to mainstream culture. It wasn't on par with The Dark Knight, but people were really hyped up for this movie. The only criticism I would say is the death of Agent Coulson.
The Locanestaco
being
says,
the identifying
seems like
factor
you are
to
making
bring together
progress.
the team. Having a character that nobody would
Referencing
ever
more
bring
art.
up again act as the catalyst might not be the best story, but it was pretty good for the time. The actors' struggles and triumphs added depth and authenticity to their characters, making the MCU more relatable and memorable. As fans, we can appreciate the roller coaster ride that Phase 1 took us on. The simplicity of the first couple films really made the build-up entirely worth it, but unfortunately, this was also the beginning of Marvel not really knowing what to do.
Okay, it's like
with superhero
basically at the
after
point
this first
where I'm
phase.
not
Taking a look
upset with
back
it.
at Phase 1, you can really see start. But if you take a look at the last fight, it's done so mediocrely.
The lock
and Now what?
says,
Ends abruptly
"That's good."
after a big
But
scene.
now what do I
There's Incredible
do?
Hulk, which I'm pretty sure Hulk has like 10 minutes of screen time throughout the whole movie. And then you got Iron Man 2, which is literally 2 steps back from the
The
first
lock in
movie.
says,
Next you have
You
Thor,
continue.
which the actors weren't the only thing changing from movie to movie. Take a look at Thor's eyebrows. Lastly, in the solo runs, you have Captain America, and when compared to its successors, this movie does not stand par. Even the Avengers has some of the cheesiest dialogue in all of Marvel.
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
What I'm trying to say about Phase 1 is that even though it was incoherent, at least they kind of led up to a grand event with the Avengers. They really should have stopped and planned the next phase because honestly, Phase 2 should have ended this entire franchise. After an amazing finale, there's going to be some high expectations moving forward, and so starting off with Iron Man seemed like the best bet. He was, at the time, the most profitable hero, and generally the most well-liked. But unfortunately, Phase 2 is where the cracks start to show a little bit more. Iron Man 3 welcomes a new director, Shane Black, known for directing Robert Downey Jr. in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. With this being the last film in Robert Downey Jr.'s contract, he showed his support in the transition. Shane Black wanted to make this movie feel real. He's quoted as saying he wanted it to be a spy thriller with Iron Man being stripped of his power and using his wit and charm to save the day. Wait a minute. That's the exact same premise as the first 2 films. Feige is quoted as saying, "The idea for the movie was to mirror the first half of the original Iron Man, where he is isolated and needs to figure things out by himself. It even starts in the middle of the movie, just like the first one, showcasing Stark's cocky attitude just to be humbled halfway through before finding out that he needs to open up to others is not character development. It's just rehashing old ideas, and for the writers to say they wanted a more serious tone, yeah, this isn't it."
Wouldn't go in there for 20 minutes.
What about Extremis and the Mandarin? Surely those weren't just underutilized. Well, originally, Rebecca Hall, the creator of Extremis in this universe, was supposed to be the original villain, but because the toys wouldn't sell due to the villain being a woman, they axed that plan. Don't worry, she got written out in a very compelling way.
Like, thankfully nowadays they just make the toys whether they'll be selling or not.
Mackie actually auditioned for before it went to Ben Kingsley, and we finally get a nice dark entry to Marvel for the first time, just like how they intended. At least that was how the trailers made it seem. Iron Man 3 follows Tony Stark as he grapples with post-traumatic stress disorder following the events of the Avengers. A new terrorist threat emerges in the form of the troublesome Mandarin and the Extremis enhanced soldiers. After Happy falls victim to one of the attacks, Stark calls out the terrorist before having his house blown up. You'd think a guy that previously made missiles for a living would install some sort of security measures, but I guess not. Then Stark, without the aid of his Iron Man suits, embarks on a journey of self-discovery and redemption to stop the Mandarin from infiltrating the White House and avenge his house. Meanwhile, War Machine, known as Iron Patriot, gets kidnapped, and so does Pepper. After the big hilarious twist, Tony and Rhodey team up and take on the army of like 5 guys before saving the president.
3 guys, 1 girl, all armed.
Pepper, who now has superpowers, helps save the day, and Tony fixes the hole in his chest, and his heart grew 2 sizes that Christmas Day. This was the second highest grossing movie of the franchise at the time. Even though people absolutely were not on board with the Mandarin twist, it did not stop the momentum thanks to the Avengers. When I first watched this, I thought it was the best Iron Man movie. Sure, the movies are all about the exact same thing with the same elements and characters all revolving around redemption and troubles from the past, but at least this one made me laugh. I actually didn't mind the Mandarin twist. In a vacuum, you could say that this is the first movie that had style and pizzazz. But the more I analyzed it, the more I cannot begin to understand how this movie made so much money. The Avengers was so great because it had all the characters working together after sharing so much animosity and resentment. But this movie just throws all of Stark's character development away. I really like the way they handled his PTSD because, I mean, the guy carried a nuke through a wormhole. But what's really funny is that it's seamlessly cured by a little Tennessee boy.
Do you have medication?
Nope.
Do you need to be on it?
Probably.
Do you have PTSD?
I don't think so.
Are you going completely mental?
Jarvis, an all-knowing AI robot, the love of his life, and his best friend, couldn't help Tony as much as some random kid. That's another thing. Who are all these random characters, and why are they acting so eccentric?
Mom, I need to call you back. Something magical is happening. Tony's
Does this
Oh,
seriously
okay.
make you act like a broody vampire, or was this how this
Sorry
person
that I can't
acted
see.
before
Didn't see your
becoming
messages,
supervillain?
Dr.
Why
Frederick.
don't any of the bad guys just shoot
It
Tony
didn't
or
pop out the chat.
even? Like they're running around
Dun,
with no suit
dun.
and getting kidnapped multiple times.
This
but
is
not once did
number,
the bad
like,
guys just shoot
this is
them.
character
This
number
guy's
3.
freaking house. Why wouldn't they just try to kill him right there? I mean, obviously they didn't really need him
If you're
for
still
any
here.
plans.
This is
Instead,
character
they're
number
too busy
3.
making
I've not
jokes.
finished
Roderick
any one
says,
of them.
YouTube chat check.
There were so many jokes that just didn't hit. It was honestly kind of embarrassing. The script was just all over the place as well.
I should probably just kill off Botrix at this point.
Written out completely. And I didn't want to bring this up
Yeah,
too,
me
but
too,
where
very
the hell is
too
Shield?
soon.
So I get that Shield has a council for like the entire world, but you think they'd pay attention when
You
the
never
president
appreciate
gets
the
kidnapped. Maybe
movies until you get worse
trying to
ones.
help out Iron Man if his house just exploded, or Captain America could spend some time trying to help or something. I mean, why wouldn't Captain America help the President of America? It's literally in his name. Listen, I know what you're gonna say. Oh, well, this is an Iron Man movie, not an Avengers movie. Okay, that's fine. But Nick Fury came back for way less in Iron Man 2. If you've already established that there are more characters in the Marvel-verse, then use them, even if it's just a passing line. As the world grows, you also have to be willing to understand that the characters have to grow in it. You can't just keep isolating everyone and reverting them back to a caricature of themselves. This movie is fun, but when comparing it to the other MCU entries, it's definitely in Iron Man 2 territory. One of the main challenges in connecting the TV shows to the MCU was maintaining continuity. With different creative teams, production schedules, and the need for self-contained storytelling, keeping everything aligned proved to be a task. The shows often had to dance around the events of the movies without directly acknowledging them. Marvel Television had a level of creative freedom that allowed them to explore different corners of the Marvel Universe, but sometimes this freedom conflicted with the studio's broader cinematic strategy.
How long you planning on streaming tonight?
Not too long. Maybe just another 30 minutes.
How are you gonna have a side character destroy the world when in the past 15 movies, none of the villains have been able to do so? Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. introduced the Inhuman storyline, which slightly overlapped the MCU's portrayal of Inhumans. That's because MCU at the time did
seems
not have
reasonable.
the rights to
Gotta
say
get good sleep.
mutants. In the early stages of the MCU, Marvel TV produced Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which predominantly featured the Inhumans and Extremis storyline. However, this TV series and its plot lines were kept separate from the movies, leading to a very disjointed experience for fans and like 5 seasons of this.
So your gravitonium device contains the energy of 3 monoliths.
By the time the idea of incorporating Inhumans in the MCU came around, the TV version had already established its own mythology, making it challenging to integrate them smoothly. The shows were pretty meh, but at least it kept you occupied before the next movie. So, the sequel for Thor was announced before the first film had even been released. Unfortunately, Branagh was unable to return as director. Patty Jenkins, who directed Wonder Woman,
Trying to
was set
find
to
a.
direct until she left.
I'm trying to use the
creative
3D
differences,
modeling tool
which is
to
a theme you'll see a few
pose
times during this phase. Alan Taylor, known for his work on
an
Game of
idea for
Thrones,
the
then
arm.
stepped up and wanted to portray the new Thor with a dark and dirty look to make it more authentic and Viking-like. Mads Mikkelsen and Benedict Cumberbatch almost played Malekith, so thank the gods they couldn't land the role, but about a year before the release date, they finally had every character confirmed and filming could begin. There was an army of writers trying to connect this story to previous entries and make it all make sense, with even Joss Whedon being called in to do some final rewrites. Some cast members then expressed some concerns about the change in tone and character development. Initially, Loki was even meant to be killed off in this movie. Kevin Feige has stated saying that this was meant to close off his story. Test audiences did not like the send-off, so they had to reshoot multiple scenes, with Taylor stating that the film had been changed from their original plot. But again, the movie only had less than a year to work on post-production, and it's definitely noticeable. With all that being said, let's go into the plot. Thor: The Dark World continues the story of Thor as he faces a new threat in the form of Malekith, the leader of the Dark Elves. Malekith seeks to use a powerful cosmic force called the Aether to plunge the universe into darkness. While Thor is tending to the realms to mend the chaos that followed the destruction of the Bifrost from the first film, Jane is... Wait a minute, did Thor just kill Korg's dad? Oh my god, what kind of menace kills someone's dad and then befriends their orphan? What a crazy guy.
The only thing that does make sense is that nothing makes sense.
Anyway, Jane is trying to forget about her space boyfriend while uncovering a strange occurrence caused by the realms lining up in convergence. After being infected by the Infinity Stone, Thor takes Jane back to Asgard to find out how to fix her. All the while, Loki is in prison and Frigga tries to tend to him, but he is extremely stubborn. The Dark Elves then invade Asgard, take Jane, and kill Frigg. So against Odin's wishes, Thor must team up with his estranged brother Loki to stop Malekith and save both Earth and Asgard. Loki sacrifices himself to save his brother, and Thor ends up saving the day before they give the Infinity Stone to the Collector. Also, Loki disguises himself as Odin. Listen, I know Thor 2 is the most
Dr.
hated
Frederick
Marvel
says,
movie
Wow.
I think TDS is a little finicky
I get
today.
the hate.
Yeah, it's my fault. It's because I had not popped out the chat. Sorry about that. I missed your chat.
This movie, which the only crime that Thor 2 is guilty of is it's kind of boring.
Like, as for your chats, this is a character number 3.
Dr. Frederick says, that's okay.
I have not finished the other 2 though. I'm just trying to sketch a bunch of them in the first place.
Only by Hawkeye. But if you take a look at it as a movie that followed Thor 1, it's not that bad. Is
This
it good?
reference sketch
No.
is like
Is
not
it as
even
good
very
as Thor?
good.
Maybe. Is
It's
it
my
as
fault.
bad as this?
This reference like 3D model.
Oh my
I
god.
didn't put enough time into it.
Just stop. You have him.
Dr.
Just
Frederick
kill him.
says,
Definitely
okay.
not. Thor
3
2
is a step towards
definition of
100,
mediocre.
so there we
It's
go.
a mid-movie with
Absolutely.
and mid-action scene.
Yep.
This is the first and only
The
I want him to
Longest
hold like a
Actor
book or
says,
something.
Wait, what's the 3D
actually
thing?
almost loses a fight. What
Just
works in
thing
movie
called
is
this
that
thing
you
called
have
Pose
the
My
characters
Art.
from the interconnected films that preceded it, Thor and Avengers, with basically every writer
It's
helping
like really
them
weird
get
looking.
introduced. Of course, there are going to be some
Dr.
thematic
Frederick
issues
says,
and different tones, but at
Journey
least
of
the
1,000
movie
miles
takes the
begins with
time
a
to
single
address
step, and 3 is
past
better than
story
a
arcs
single.
and build from them. You also get closure for some of our characters, and the best aspect of the movie, once again, Loki. This is the start of where Thor and Loki's interactions seem more like brotherly banter rather than annoying thespian characters.
Don't hit it, just press it gently.
I am pressing it gently. Stop.
My biggest gripe was to include an Infinity Stone, at the time known as an Infinity Gem. Having the Reality Stone act as an alternate
I got
reality
fighting with the
really
3D model
didn't
right
make
now. I
any
don't know.
sense since its main function should be altering
Okay.
reality.
This doesn't make any sense.
Luckily, they changed its color to red, which allowed the Power Stone to be purple, creating some of the best
I like
color
this
schemes
model.
for Guardians of the Galaxy. Despite all its problems, I think this movie in hindsight is uplifted by Thor Ragnarok and Avengers Endgame. But it definitely showed Marvel's seemingly invincible formula wasn't immune to artistic clashes. There were even recent reports of Taylor wanting to release his 4-hour version similar to the Snyder Cut. Dude, what? That was like 10 years ago. I absolutely love Community. It's probably my favorite sitcom ever, so when I heard the Russo brothers were primed to film a Marvel movie, I expected a whimsical, creative film that was fun and a fresh new take.
Cool. Cool.
Little did I know, they were
Mm.
going to take it in the complete opposite direction. But to know that Feige chose them based on their Season 2 finale, A Fistful of Paintballs, is just awesome.
This is paintball.
Writing began when Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely had released the first Captain America. They wanted this movie to continue the trope of a man lost in time, but wanted it to be more so of Captain America versus the world we live in now. The screenplay explored themes of espionage and government surveillance and was inspired by the Winter Soldier storyline by Ed Brubaker. They began to adapt Cap into a more political thriller rather than mystical superhero, with Feige suggesting Rogers fight against the industry that made him. With most of the cast set, the film's production began, and they set out to make the first different Marvel movie. Also, once again,
What should you be holding? I
Sharon
kind of want to do a
Carter.
book.
Really weird. Unfortunately, this was also a time
I mean,
when
a sword
leaks were
isn't
running rampant,
bad
and
idea.
many of the action sequences and portions of the script were leaked online, causing concerns about spoilers and potential security breaches. Nonetheless, the movie was released, and it was amazing. The film picks up with Steve
The Loch in a
Rogers,
Stacko
aka
says,
Captain America,
or a
who is
staff.
struggling to adapt to
The
the
Loch in a
modern
Stacko
world
says,
after being frozen in ice
fuck.
for nearly 70 years. As he works
The
for
Loch in a
S.H.I.E.L.D.,
Stacko
he begins
says,
to realize that Big
why can't
Brother
ever
might not
remember
be the
that
most
word?
ethically motivated
Well,
agent,
yeah, I think it's a
but
major staff. That
absolutely
makes sense.
causes Cap and Natasha to go rogue in order to discover S.H.I.E.L.D.'s secrets. Meanwhile, the masked assassin known as the Winter Soldier is
But
trying to
I'm not
bring
that
him
good,
down.
so-
The big twist is he's got a
Oof.
weak chin. The deep-rooted conspiracy turns out to be the works of Hydra, which has infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. and was the reason for a lot of assassinations throughout the years. Cap and friends fight against Hydra and Bucky to stop their plans to murder millions of high-risk individuals. After successfully destroying Washington, D.C., Bucky saves his old friend and slowly regains his consciousness. With S.H.I.E.L.D. now decimated, the crew decides to part ways, except Steve and Sam, who decide to hunt down Bucky, which is completely abandoned in the next movie. Captain America the Winter Soldier is celebrated for its complex narrative, political undertones, and impact on MCU's storytelling direction. It garnered over $700 million and was a great display of doing things separate from the Marvel formula. The movie was serious, gritty, everything Iron Man 3 and Thor 2 promised to be. But since this movie wants to take itself too seriously, I'm gonna treat it like every other movie in Phase 2 and criticize the dumb parts. First off, some highlights. They finally get Black Widow's character right, where she seemed to change in every subsequent movie. First, she's a sexualized femme fatale, then she's a super spy capable of defeating aliens with just her pistols, and here she is written perfectly. Witty, more than just a therapist or love interest, she is
"Cause
morally
you're a fool."
ambiguous until
Duh.
her friends are put into
I
harm's
am.
way, but all this character development is thrown away in Avengers 2, so it's hard to say this is a win.
I still think you're the only monster on the team.
Next, you have old goody two-shoes, Captain
Lightest
America.
Bright
For
says,
the past few films,
"No, not
Cap has
you,
been
Rio."
going toe-to-toe
Lightest
against
Bright
others
says,
that he finds
Taco.
morally corrupt. In Avengers, it
I
was Stark,
disagree.
and here it is
I'm also
again
the fool.
with Nick Fury. What I love is that even after the Avengers
I sent you that GIF by accident.
manufacturing weapons, he still agrees to work for them. Then in this movie, when he
I'm
starts to
looking at it.
question the morality of Nick Fury,
Looks like a little
it is
bear.
fine, because they use Hydra as a cop-out before he starts reflecting on his nation or, himself. And you'll be surprised because it's exactly how he acts in Civil War.
The Loch in a Stacko says,
Captain America is the
Bear is
definition
cute.
of a Mary Sue. What's the guy version
Yeah.
of that?
You doom scrolling right now, sir.
Oh, Gary Stu. A guy with all the strength mentally and physically that is morally always in the right and who doesn't seem to ever need
The
to
Loch in a
reflect
Stacko
in any
says,
sense. People
"Nope."
say this movie made him edgy and cool, but it really didn't. He didn't follow orders in the first movie either and still managed to do things on his
The
own
Loch in a
terms.
Stacko
He's
says,
a perfect character.
"Just glanced
a
at
perfect
Twitter and saw
person,
it."
A perfect body, and a perfect ass. I understand why people think he's the best character. He literally has no faults. Some questions I do have when watching this movie. Why does Black Widow have a rocket tracking app on her phone?
Steve, we got a bogey. Short range ballistic. 30 seconds tops.
Dude, how in the world did they survive that explosion? I mean, a shield can't protect you from heat. They would just burn to death. How does the Winter Soldier not kill Black Widow with this shot? They were literally just explaining what a perfect assassin he is. Here we go. Sam says he's in twice.
I'm in. All right, Cap, I'm in.
I'm in.
Really weird. And where is Jarvis or Tony Stark? You'd think he'd know if Nick Fury was in trouble or if, I don't know, the ship he helped build were about to kill him.
Painful writing. Hurts.
Anyway, most of the things that bug me are just nitpicking. It's an amazing movie and exactly what we as an audience needed to hype us back up. But it does have one of the worst posters ever created in the world. Like this. Look at her. Look at her body. What is going on here? I don't understand. It's horrible. Switching back up to the cosmic side of Marvel, James Gunn took up this obscure project. He rewrote the entire script himself, but interestingly enough, he didn't want Rocket in the film. Luckily, the original writer, Nicole Perlman, pushed that the character's inclusion was necessary, which Marvel agreed on. Just stop right now. Could you imagine Guardians of the Galaxy without Rocket? I mean, the third movie is literally about him. He's probably top 5 most beloved superheroes in Marvel right now. Anyway, the rewrites changed a lot of aspects, including Thanos becoming a secondary villain rather than the primary antagonist, and let Ronan take the spotlight. A number of famous actors tested for Peter Quill like Eddie Redmayne, Joel Edgerton, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and even Zachary Levi.
Go see the movie. And if you've already seen it, go see it again.
But the final 2 prospects were Glenn Howerton and Chris Pratt. I'm not sure how 2 of the funniest sitcom characters made it to the final choice, but ultimately Pratt got the role.
And they completely goddamn disrespected me, little idiots! Idiots!
Drax was being pursued heavily by Jason Momoa before throwing in the towel as he did not want to be typecasted. My man. And also Zoe Saldana was the second choice to play Gamora behind Amanda Seyfried before she ultimately turned down the role. Amanda Seyfried and Eddie Redmayne? Okay. Gunn had also written in an Infinity Stone, unknowingly understanding its importance, which Marvel took advantage of to begin production towards the Infinity Saga. And with everything prepped, James Gunn would set out to make one of the greatest Marvel films ever. Immediately after the death of his mother, a young Peter Quill is abducted from Earth by a group of
YouTube
space
chat
pirates known as the Ravengers. As an adult, he adopts the name Star-Lord and unknowingly steals the Power Stone. He isn't the only one looking for the stone. Gamora, Rocket, and Groot are also tracking it before they get captured by the Nova Corps. While in prison, they band together with Drax the Destroyer to escape and discover the power of the Infinity Stone from the ever-so-handsome Benicio del Toro. Ronan the Accuser, these names are so ridiculous, wants to use the power of the stone to destroy Xandar. Initially at odds, this unlikely group of misfits come together as they realize the potential destruction Ronan can unleash upon the galaxy with the orb. After a hypnotizing dance battle, preventing Ronan from destroying
Yeah, the arm is still wrong
the Guardians,
somehow.
realizing that united, they can overcome any threat and potentially make a lot of money, which they really never do, but at least they got spirit. I can't recall anybody being super interested in Guardians of the
It's
Galaxy
fun.
before its initial release, especially because it came right before an Avengers movie. However, I think that most people can agree that this movie was a smash hit, and it was surprisingly well done. Not just for a Marvel movie, but for any movie. It had everything that the Marvel formula had promised. Heart and humor. But Gunn's distinctive style demonstrated his ability to expand the franchise into different corners that were worth exploring. The music, the world building, the cast, they all came together so harmoniously, and it was the first time since the first Iron Man movie people realized that they should never write something off.
You said it yourself, bitch. We're the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy still holds up to this day as a highlight in the MCU, which makes it so difficult to compare to the next movie. Before we start this section, let me preface this introduction by saying Joss Whedon is very creative, but none of that means anything when you're really
that's
a
sketch.
person. It doesn't really matter what he's
The half body sketch at least, and then the chibi.
at the expense of another person. Joss Whedon is not just an asshole for being misogynistic, a bully, and just straight up harassing people.
Gotta make
He
space.
also single-handedly ruined the DCEU and almost ruined
The
the
Lock and
MCU
Stacko
with the release
says,
of this movie. In
well,
early
it came together
2012,
very
Whedon
quickly.
stated that the
I mean,
second
it's
Lock and
movie
Stacko
was
not
says,
doing anything
so
complex.
Hell yeah.
painful.
I can't
Okay,
do
sounds
anything
like a great plan.
complex. I'm
Let's take a
just
look at
The
the
Lock
set
and
location.
Stacko
I'm trying to do the best I can.
remove all the dudes,
Korea,
make chibi.
Europe, Norway, space. Then he wanted to put Captain Marvel and Spider-Man in addition to
I don't
all
know
the
what you mean.
original characters.
Oh,
because
okay, yeah.
Sony wasn't ready to handle
Guess
the
I need to make space
Thank
for
you,
the
Sony.
chibi.
You finally did something right.
I know. I'm gonna look through the 3D model thing. Maybe there are some
With no
The
head
Lock and
actor.
Stacko
captivating
says,
chibis.
Verwa, of course, just do the best you can and improve.
Iron Man was not cast at the time of writing, as Robert Downey Jr. had not decided to come back until late 2013. He then goes on to say that juggling all the characters in the film was a nightmare compared to the first film. My guy, you wrote the film. You wanted to put all these new characters in. What do you mean you had trouble figuring them out? That doesn't make any sense. It's all on you.
fucking disaster, my guy.
Then the trailer for San Diego Comic-Con leaked, which made Marvel release the trailer earlier than anticipated. Kind of a mistake there. After test screenings, they ended up cutting scenes that weren't making any sense, including longer scenes on Hawkeye.
If I could, I'd try to make a chibi in a pose that like shows off some sword and magic. That was hard.
The rumor of Hawkeye dying and Spider-Man being in the end credits was one of the most believed concepts. Speaking of Hawkeye, he also had some pretty interesting comments on some of the characters. What do you guys think about?
She's a slut.
But luckily, they had James Spader to save the day as an enigmatic bad guy.
People.
Okay, well, what if he's holding his hand up and levitating the sword? I mean,
Children. I lost the word there.
interesting.
Okay.
Delocanistaco says,
This movie might be
if
one
it's
of the
not a
most
character you
important
want to make good,
pushing forward
don't
in
do the
narrative,
minimum
but
and
it is
move
most
on.
definitely overstated.
Don't do the
Delocanistaco
minimum.
says,
Fall of S.H.I.E.L.D., the
Levi
Avengers
eating
launch
sounds
an
cool.
assault on a Hydra facility in
Delocanistaco
Sokovia
says,
to retrieve Loki's
Mage
scepter.
hand.
And right from the jump, there's problems. Firstly, the graphics.
Okay, let's see if I can do it without a bunch of references.
But look at this. Look
Delocanistaco
at Cap
says,
whip this guy with his
do the
bike.
minimum,
Like,
sorry.
This is one of the most expensive movies ever made. You're telling me you couldn't have just got, like, I don't know, a dummy and put it on a rope and pulled that thing? Because all these shots just look so stupid. And then we get this fun shot of all our heroes working together, and it's cool, but then when you start to think of it, when do the Avengers have time to prep all their tactics? Like, that cheesy little action shot doesn't make any sense. Are they all equally going after six
Need the canvas
guys
switch.
lined up? Like, what's happening there? Don't even get me started with the script.
I'll see you tonight, 8 o'clock. Bring your swimsuit.
Captain America becomes a weird shell of himself.
Language.
Iron Man becomes an annoying meme.
You beat me by 1 second.
And everybody else is just insufferable.
Or stock.
Let's
It's full of people.
Strucker sends out the twins on the Avengers who have animosity towards Iron Man, who murdered their family, destroyed their country, and the only thing they do is bully Hawkeye. Quicksilver should be able to one-shot everybody except maybe Hulk, and he runs around pushing people. Scarlet Witch is really acting like a witch in this one, and somehow she gets past Iron Man's suit here. He literally just said,
Sentry mode.
where's the defense mode? It just is gone. Oh, and the Hulk and Black Widow are also a couple now, which came out of nowhere. Anyway, following that horrible opening, we get probably the best part of the entire movie. The Avengers just hanging out. Back at the Stark Tower, they heal up Hawkeye from his injuries and throw a party. This scene is especially weird because Stark perfected Extremis, so why didn't they just do a quick fix? Why do they need this Korean doctor? Why are there any injuries anymore if there's instant stem cells that can regrow or rebuild anything? I mean, he literally fixed the part of his chest. There shouldn't be any problems in the world anymore for injuries. So the part with them mingling is really charming and kind of shows their dynamics in a more wholesome light. But Tony and Bruce secretly use the scepter to initiate an AI program known as Ultron as an ultimate safeguard to the world, and now he's crashing the party. Ultron discusses his plans after becoming self-aware and exclaims that the only way to save humanity is to eliminate it. That's a stupid-ass plan. During the exchange, we get the infamous Whedon trope of a character falling onto boobs. Like, I don't get it. Did they want him to motorboat her? I don't understand how a studio will cut away Patty Jenkins or Edgar Wright, which we'll talk about later, and leave stuff like this in. Anyway, we get some bickering, and Ultron goes out to enlist the two enhanced, because they can't say mutants, individuals who were just doing nothing, I guess. What's really weird is that every time Ultron is introduced to someone, they call him a man or a human or something, and then he shows them that he's a robot, and it's just really awkward.
And I only deal with the men in charge.
But sooner or later, every man shows himself.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
It's giving Eowyn vibes in Lord of the Rings, but not in a good way.
I am no man.
So they kill Stroker, or they didn't have a hard time killing this guy now, and go off to the coast of Africa to get vibranium. Throughout the entire 17 minutes of screen time Ultron gets, yes, that's right, the movie is called Age of Ultron, and he's only on screen for 17 minutes. He shows that he's unbearably sarcastic, incredibly sensitive, and just so cheesy.
I'm sorry. I'm sure that's gonna be okay.
I don't even think ChatGPT can write such corny crap. We get another struggle, but this time the team is incapacitated due to Scarlet Witch's hallucinations. Let's talk about this part because it seemed like we didn't really thought it was important to keep them in. Cap dreams about getting the last dance with Peggy. Thor gets confronted by Heimdall for the destruction of Asgard. And Black Widow remembers she can't have kids. Yes, that is Black Widow's biggest struggle, the fact that she's infertile. She even goes as far as saying she's a monster compared to the Hulk, who just murdered a bunch of innocent people.
You still think you're the only monster on the team?
I don't understand how she can be written so differently in every movie. Just make her a side character. She doesn't need to be there doing everything. She even ends up getting kidnapped later on. For what reason? Is Black Widow a kick-ass spy or some helpless part of the Avengers who acts solely as a way to calm down the Hulk like a mother?
I'm always picking up after you boys.
I just want her to make sense. I just want her to be normal. What I love about the Russo brothers in future movies is that they know how to make every character an individual and respect every movie that comes out before it. Anyway, Cap and Hawkeye were able to steal Vision, but not before the twins end up switching sides.
I'm not sleeping. I swear. I'm trying to imagine the pose.
5 minutes of switching sides.
Ultron can't tell the difference between saving the world and destroying it. Where do you think he gets that?
A guy that has saved the world 3 times now. The guy that made your shield and armor, that has been trying to do better.
The Lokinestaco says,
because they said he's bad. This is my biggest problem with Captain America. Think. Persists from his previous movies. He just complains about the actions of Tony Stark, of Nick Fury, without ever contributing to the plan. He just stands around looking serious and sad because everyone's wrong and he's right. But what are his ideas? You never get them. Come on now, Cap. We're all waiting. What's your solution? How are we gonna fix this? Oh, you don't have one? Okay, then just stay there complaining.
Never what? You didn't finish!
Where the hell has War Machine also been this whole time? Did he only think he was useful at the end? I mean, this whole movie, it's like, okay, he was there at the party. Where is he? Where is he now? He wasn't there helping them out in the beginning. He wasn't there in the middle. Where's the guy? Anyway, with the help of Vision and our emancipated Black Widow, the Avengers confront Ultron in the final battle. Take a look at this scene. Count with me how many times the Ultron bot flies over the button. 1, 2, 3... I don't care anymore. Quicksilver dies, there's some more cringy dialogue and some forced jokes.
You and Banner better not be playing hide the zucchini.
And they save the world. Well,
Oh my god, was that a real line? If you told me like that was like an AI generated line, it wasn't actually in the movie, I would believe you.
I counted. It was literally this big climactic buildup, all for Iron Man to figure things out in 30 seconds. This movie freaking sucked. This movie made way too much money. It made almost as much money as the Avengers, and people really think this is somehow underrated. First off, following Guardians of the Galaxy, this movie felt so forced. You can tell that Whedon really just doesn't know what the hell to do with his characters, because all of them are the exact same. They're all sarcastic, they're all sassy, and when dealing with deadly situations, they come off as annoying rather than serious. There is no heart in this movie. There is no clear connection between this and the past 4 entries. Didn't Tony want to stop letting his fears consume him? Isn't he going to therapy? Why is he so stressed? I know that that's not how therapy works, but you can't just be like, oh my gosh, I need to make more mistakes because this isn't working. He has all his friends. He has all the resources. He has all the money. This guy should be getting the help he needs. He also has supportive people in his life. Doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't he want to communicate what he's going to do? Thor abandons his friends to go see more visions, but he could have probably beaten Ultron right then and there, and that would have been the movie. I mean, once they got the vision, he could have just left. He could have been like, oh, I'm going to go explore my visions a little bit more. But it really just seems very convenient that it's just Captain America, Black Widow, and Hawkeye. And that's something that is really telling here in the MCU. Only the story gets pushed along, not the character developments, not the vibes. Winter Soldier was a serious espionage movie, but in this movie, Cap and Black Widow are literally just jokesters and have horrible decision-making skills. Captain America was the leader thrust into position in the first Avengers and even knew his limits. He struggled to fight the Chitauri army and stayed ground level, but in this movie, he's defying the law of physics and choking a robot. I get it. You want him calling the shots. He says,
You get killed, walk it off.
Then Quicksilver literally dies. So does he just say cool things to say cool things? Is he some super soldier with terrible comprehension skills? Did it just make his muscles big and not his brain? Can he not see the severity of the situation? The world's about to end. Why is he still making quips and jokes?
What, were you napping?
Did he at least apologize to Scarlet Witch after? You can start to realize that Marvel really didn't know what they wanted to do after the first Avengers, or even before, since all of these movies were announced before the first Avengers movie even came out. It's like they just wanted to put something out regardless of the quality, and what sucks is that this movie kind of ruins previous entries. It's pointless to go back and watch our characters develop because it's thrown away here. That's why Guardians of the Galaxy is great even now. It's unconnected and stands on its own. And to top it all off, this isn't even the end of Phase 2.
Huh? Who would have thought? Not me.
I won't talk about Ant-Man too long because everyone kind of knows the deal with it. In the mid-2000s, Edgar Wright, famous for Shaun of the Dead and Scott Pilgrim, began writing Ant-Man after pitching his idea to Marvel. Ant-Man, interestingly enough, was supposed to be part of Phase 1.
What the fuck are you saying?
But prepping for the movie took a lot more time than anticipated. Wright was finished with writing in 2012, describing it similarly to Hot Fuzz, and test footage was shown at San Diego Comic-Con. Feige said that the movie was pushed back to 2015 as revisions had been made since it had been in development before the tone of the MCU was set. As development continued, Marvel decided to part ways with Wright in early 2014, but kept most of his previous script. And that is pretty much it.
That's not it at all.
Some of the uniqueness is still in there, but now we can only imagine how Wright's original interpretation would have been. Ant-Man follows Scott Lang, a master thief trying to rebuild his life and regain custody of his young daughter. His ragtag team of small-time criminals lure him into stealing from Hank Pym, who recruits him after his successful heist. His mission is to prevent Hank's former protege from replicating and selling the Ant-Man technology as a militarized version. As he is trained by both Hank and Hope Pym, Scott accepts the responsibility and power that comes with becoming the Ant-Man. He makes a fool out of Falcon and has a pretty epic and unique fight with Yellow Jacket as he saves the day in a small MCU entry. Ant-Man was a good standalone MCU film, but I always think about it with asterisks. James Gunn and the Russo brothers got to do their movie with little pushback. They even were implementing questionable decisions that ultimately paid off. But why not Wright? Why did Joss Whedon get to butcher Avengers Age of Ultron, and Edgar Wright, who had been writing Ant-Man before the first Iron Man movie released, get the short end of the stick?
How can this be for the greater good? The greater good.
This movie is not that bad, and it's probably the best introduction of a superhero since the original Iron Man, but it's really strange to see how Marvel makes these decisions. It's as almost if they try to have groundwork, but then with only 3 amazing movies, 2 good movies, and everything else in between being either bad or mediocre, why did they get so confident with their formula? Why did they continue making movies the way they were making them if people had problems with them early on? It's so interesting to see their decision making and their ideas conflicting with directors or writers or actors. It's honestly amazing to see that they have progressed to where they are now. As Phase 3 begins, there is noticeably some more freedom given to the directors, and you can tell that there was a shared end in sight. But that consistently only lasts for this next phase alone. With Phase 3 being unarguably the best, there are still some problems we can see from the narrative and from the decisions behind the scenes. As this exploration continues, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the first 2 phases of the MCU. Did you feel some of the criticism was warranted, or are you a diehard Phase 2 fan and think Loki has fallen off since Thor: The Dark World? If you have a different take that I haven't even considered, comment below and we can chat about it. As always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.
I know it's barely been 1 hour. Like, I did a sketch and I was leaving it. I'm like,
We are now referring to as a crypto scammer just got exposed for exploiting his friendship with one of the biggest streamers in the world.
The Lockinus
Then
Daco
throwing
says,
them under the bus.
I
The
think it's a
issue is
perfect
there's been
time to go
history
to
of him
bed.
building a career off of dirty money, and this exact practice is what ended with him stepping down as CEO from FaZe. So this is Banks, the CEO, or well now ex-CEO of a massive gaming
The sleepy Friday. Why is sleepy? I mean, I said it on Saturday, but I don't know why sleepy was bad.
You worked for 12 hours and did art. Hell yeah, go rest.
I don't regret
I'm kind of surprised they didn't realize
staying up and drawing a little bit.
over the span of his career, because obviously
You know,
there is a lot
gotta
to
get there
unpack here.
somewhere.
So let's start with the basic backstory. So as previously stated, Ricky or Banks was the CEO and co-founder of the gaming organization by the name of FaZe Clan. I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this video grew up watching these guys, so I don't really think I have to go too much into detail here. But long story short,
Patrick
FaZe
says,
Clan started as a Call of Duty
YouTube
trick-shotting
chat
team
check.
that spiraled into a massive worldwide brand that has worked and helped grow some of the largest social media personalities in the world. However, FaZe
And how do I do
have had quite a
face?
few controversies since the beginning. Allegedly, back in 2015, FaZe Banks and a handful of others co-owned a Counter-Strike gambling site called CSGO Wild. From reports, this site earned up to $200,000 a day. And you're probably thinking, well, that seems fine, but he never declared that he was owner until 2020. So essentially, he spent 4 years denying that he was a part of it. And this likely had a lot to do with the backlash that T. Martin and Syndicate got from being a part of making a similar Counter-Strike gambling site called CSGO Lotto. Obviously, this turned into a massive legal and PR nightmare for them, but they ended up settling and essentially getting away with a slap on the wrist in the eyes of the law. But in the online communities, it's safe to say they took a pretty big hit to their careers for a while at least. Even though, at least
Guys are also so close to good.
CSGO and CSGO gambling was extremely normalized within the gaming communities. But Banks finally admitted that he was an owner in 2020 of CSGO Wild. He explained that his motivation behind CSGO Wild was making enough money to purchase the CSGO team. So alongside with other FaZe members, they promoted this site with clear knowledge that Banks owned it. But then to somehow make things worse, the site failed to use a provable fair system. And that they were actually publicly outed for by various sources for manipulating the outcomes of the bets. Then on top of that, they allegedly didn't pay the site designer. So not only did they promote gambling to kids, but they also allegedly scammed a kid in the process. So clearly, this is not a good look. The CSGO Wild TLDR is allegedly a lot of FaZe members,
successfully checked,
who
bot RIT.
owned the site, promoted an illegal gambling website to their
Yeah,
child audience.
the trick is, if I don't hear Botchix talk for a while, that means that the YouTube
Hazes actually made a great
not
video
keeping
covering
up.
this topic, and I'll be
But I
linking
was
that video in the description below. After that,
forget.
this started a whole new era of FaZe. Banks had a pretty viral crash out on Snapchat of him in Europe. Many claimed this was due to substance abuse problems after falling into unimaginable amounts of money from CSGO Wild. But he ended up very publicly leaving FaZe here.
I'm not joking on Twitter. I'm being 100% serious, and I'm happy with my decision. If you want to delete me on Snapchat, if you want to follow me on Twitter, if you want to hate me, do it all, man. Just keep that negative away. That's it. Goodbye. I'm getting so many tweets about the tattoo. The tattoo is on my body forever. I'm glad it's on my body forever. FaZe was the coolest time of my life. FaZe up.
And here's the more formal tweet that he posted about this move back in 2016. But most of the FaZe guys, they ended up moving out to LA. And
Dr.
Banks
Frederick
also
says,
ended up moving to LA a
it
little
wouldn't
bit later,
be VTubing
starting
without
the
some
Clout
technical
House
mess
with Rice Gum
UPS.
and Alyssa Violet. Meanwhile, at this time, FaZe got connected with a shady
Perfect
guest
stream means that you were actually
and this
asleep
guy
the
is
entire
known for,
time.
lying a lot, to put it lightly, within the Norwegian esports scene. But clearly, he's a smooth talker, and after meeting one of the founding members on FaZe on a plane and lying to him about who he knew, FaZe decided to move forward and bring him into the company. This guy was an absolute nightmare for FaZe. He allegedly ended up scamming the FaZe guys in multiple ways. First, from what I've heard, he ended up pitching them the startup of his. He ended up raising a bunch of money from the internal FaZe group, then nothing came from that startup. Some of the members even threw him hundreds of thousands of dollars towards this startup. And then you have the second thing, which many can refer to as
around my
scam,
fucking
is
head.
by the way he influenced FaZe,
Buzzing
which
around.
eventually turned the company into a pump and dump for private equity that got their big
Oh,
cash
there's-
out after FaZe Clan was spacked out onto the
Delochinestaco
stock market.
says,
And I'm not sure if he
murder
was
him.
actually still involved or had shares
Delochinestaco
when they
says,
finally spacked and went
her.
onto the public market. But I do know he asked a FaZe member while that FaZe member was in the hospital if his wife could borrow his car. But fun fact though, from what I know, none of the original FaZe Clan members made money from FaZe going live on the stock market, as they couldn't sell because their shares were locked up. But after the stock market hit, that was kind of towards the end of Big FaZe, at least, because it all came down collapsing after that, because the company was...
I don't know if I can murder it,
and the
but
stock essentially dropped 99%.
make sure to tighten up
And
the
FaZe Clan doesn't exist
the
per se.
really
It's just what
shitty
I'm
tape
calling the bloated private equity version
tape
of FaZe,
fortress.
that basically everyone within the community was
They
not
sprayed
a
some
fan
books
of.
for it.
Now you still
So-
have a private equity version of FaZe, but this one is very different from what was running it in 2019, 2020, 2021, and so on. But obviously, other things happened during that time that hurt the reputation of both FaZe Clan and Banks. Like the Tfue contract, where FaZe Clan drafted a very unfair, exploitative contract that they could take up to 80% of the revenue from his brand deals. And that became public after Tfue sued FaZe Clan in 2019. And what's so interesting about this is like the 80-20 split between creators and talent agencies, that's very normal. Except it's 80% to the creator, 20% to the agency. This is opposite. This was 20% to Tfue, 80% to FaZe Clan. Now, from everyone I've talked to, FaZe never like executed on that contract. They never actually held that contract to the state, aka they never took the 80% cut from his deals. But obviously the elephant in the room here is they could if they wanted to, and that's a massive problem. And many people blame Banks here for this, but I don't think he had anything to do with it at all. I would be looking at Seabass way before I would be looking at Banks when it comes to this stuff. Even though that Seabass would just be a cog in the massive machine that was the bloated private equity version of FaZe back then. But what I will say is Banks was definitely at fault with his involvement with Banks Social, because in May of 2021, Banks tweeted in support of this project called Banks Social, calling it, in quote, a project I F with heavily and truly believe this is the next one to pop. He then ran a $10,000 giveaway with that project, which obviously caused the token to pump, then immediately dump right after. Banks then deleted the tweets, got called out for it, then claimed that he never sold any of his B Social tokens and that he didn't participate in any pump and dump. And I mean, that's cool and all, but he should have also understood how irresponsible that was.
That's what we got for the night.
The whole Save the Kids
I
situation.
made it to an hour and 4 minutes.
2021. Multiple FaZe members promoted a crypto
I
coin
thought
that
that
was
would-
promoted as a charity. However, immediately after launching the coin, it crashed by over 90%.
I like the chibi more,
Started looking at the transaction on the
obviously.
blockchain, and very soon after realized that the members were directly involved. FaZe and Banks are quick to distance themselves from this whole scandal and
Think it's
claim they
looking
had zero
very good.
involvement or knowledge of the
Velocin
scam.
Estaco
And from what I
says,
can tell, this is still
Chibi
true.
looks cute.
These members who did this were fired and kicked immediately. But another thing I wanted to quickly add, as I mentioned,
As we all know, all I can hope for is like
Big FaZe, because in
like
2022,
$5
FaZe
for
became a
this one.
public traded company, essentially meaning that the company's ownership could be distributed with the general public.
There you
If
go.
you ask anyone about FaZe,
Good night
at the
to
time,
everyone.
they would say something around the lines of FaZe became
I wish everyone
this is in reference to
productivity and also
FaZe
rest
that I'm
and
talking about. But
calmness.
obviously the massive problem with that
For
was
those of us who
seeing
need to
that
sleep,
FaZe, what it is
I wish you
essentially
much
gone,
calm and
only
rest.
a year later the stock had completely collapsed, causing the
Because,
former
you know,
CEO
getting
to
enough
turn.
sleep
FaZe was then acquired by
directly
Games Holding,
connected
which
to
Velocin
being
Estaco says,
sane and healthy.
good night, Miss Rio. Velocin Estaco says, take care.
You too. Good night. Thank you. Good night.
Velocin Estaco says, GN.
Yeah.